exactly the kind of thing you will get if you try to leave the royal family and make your own way somewhere. Because if you wish to remain a royal, if you were to, we were saying earlier on, if you were going to leave the royal family and become normal as you could, and just forego the whole thing, the whole show, and say, I just want to be a normal human being, I don't think anyone would complain about that. But the fact is, if you want to leave the royal family and live like a billionaire, then there's going to be more scrutiny, and it's exactly the scrutiny that they kind of want to avoid when they're having their exit from the royal family. And so what we've got here is a 2-page investigation, and this is very interesting because Harry and Meghan are unhappy with the royal reporters who go on the rota to the official visits, and Harry calls them the cartel. But those royal reporters can be, to some extent, controlled with a call from the palace press office saying you're not coming on the next trip if you don't do, if you don't fall in line, do what you want you to do. Investigative reporters cannot be controlled like that. Investigative reporters who get a phone call like that just get worse and come after you harder. And what we've got here is an investigation into who owns the property Harry and Meghan are currently living in, or Meghan is currently living in, on Vancouver Island, this multi-million-pound hideaway on the Pacific coast. And at the end of this piece, you're actually no nearer knowing who owns it. There's lots of speculation as to which Russian-linked oligarch it might be. There's always been 2 or 3 names in the frame. Another name is in the frame here, a Russian-Israeli called Yuri Milner, who has been an early investor into tech companies like Facebook and Twitter, made a lot of money that way. And there's various things throughout this piece linking him to Russian state finance, saying he was on the US Treasury watch list in 2018, and other issues. His spokesman in here, who interestingly is Paddy Harvison, used to be the spokesman for Prince Charles, so another link with the royal family, denies that he has anything to do with this property. He stayed there once 5 years ago, that's all. And he met Harry at a Google Camp summit, Earth Summit, a little while ago, climate change summit. But because he's met him once and he's stayed in the same house they're currently staying in.
With 5 years apart.
With 5 years apart, there is a huge investigation into him, his background, his finances, his scandals, his successes, his mother, his father, and trying to say, look, is this the kind of person we want the royals linked to? And that's what they're going to have. Sorry, I've gone on. No, this is the kind of thing they're going to have for the next 50 years of the life they want, which is the people they're going to socialise with, the people whose houses they stay in, who are they, and they're going to have the investigations going on.
And as we understand it, one of the reasons that they appear to want a new life is to escape some of the media scrutiny.
Yes.
Do you think that Susie's right, that it might increase, or do you think, in fact, they will be able to hide away?
It's always amused me the way that they've said that they want to move away from the media scrutiny, and that they timed that announcement just in time for all the news outlets in the US to pick up on it. I mean, ultimately, yes, this is the thing. It seems to be especially the British press that they go after, never the American press, because there's a lot more money to be made in the US press. But the key thing here is, we have heard before that Prince Harry is no fan of the press, and we can entirely understand why that is. But if you want to remove yourself from, and Susie is right, it is a relative element of protection that you get by being active members of the royal family. If you want to remove yourself from that situation and also take a few pops at the press, you are essentially putting a giant target on your back. And Susie's right, this is going to be what happens to them incessantly, because there is money to be made in investigative journalists going after them, finding out who it is that they're friends with. But this is also another thing.
There's money to be made from anyone who may have a slightly dodgy background trying to attach themselves to Harry and Meghan.
Well, this is the thing, because Harry and Meghan have said they want to become financially independent. What does that mean? It means finding essentially wealthy benefactors, billionaires, investors, that sort of thing, in order to fund whatever project it may be. Because, of course, Harry and Meghan, one of the things that they like to do is foundations, charitable causes, but all of that takes money, and that's where they're going to have to find it from, is individuals outside of the taxpayer, outside of the royal family, and all of a sudden, all of these people, all of their money is suddenly up for grabs. Where we can do investigations into where that's come from. Is it entirely, okay and transparent where it's come from? This is, it's going to ratchet up the amount of press intrigue and intervention into their lives.
Okay, and we still aren't entirely clear on what shape this new life will take, and the front page of the Telegraph picks up on that, because we were told that the Queen wanted a quick resolution. It's the story down there. Sussex's wait on deal as aides hit a snag. We understood that the Queen said she wanted something to be wrapped up, some sort of proposal to be done in a matter of days, not weeks.
A clean Megxit.
clean exit, you could say, indeed. But this suggesting that the process has been slowed down a little bit.
Yes, it doesn't really explain how or why, but as with Brexit, the issue is a major constitutional stumbling block. With Brexit, it was the Northern Ireland border issue. With Megxit, it is how you can leave the royal family, as it were, become financially independent and do things which don't damage that royal family afterwards, either by endorsements or that might affect government policy. If you're talking about climate change, for example, and there's a state visit underway being planned with Donald Trump, what if you upset him? So all kinds of other issues. And of course, if you were part of the royal family, the kind of people you hang out with would get checked to some extent, and so you wouldn't have some of this scrutiny either.
Well, that's the thing. You say it might be checked to some extent, but we've already seen in the last year the damage that can be had when certain members of the royal family associate with less than reputable people, and that was somebody inside the royal family, under the auspices of the royal family, and the protection that affords them. Meghan and Harry are always going to be in the public eye because of their royal background. That's how they're going to make their money. That's why they're celebrities. That's why they're of value to people. But once they are outside of that sphere of influence, then they still have the attachment to the royal family, even if they have absolutely nothing to do with them. There will always be that attachment. So if you are looking at this from the position of Her Majesty the Queen and saying, well, actually, there is a lot more damage that can be wrought here, because it's not as if we can bring them back into the fold and go, okay, no more public duties for you. You're going to just disappear for a little bit. You know, they will be entirely up to themselves. But still, what they do, who they associate with, will come back and reflect on the royal family. So I'm not surprised that this is actually a very complex issue, because there are many things that have never been approached before, many protocols that will need to be created.
One of the issues here, which is mentioned in the Mail piece, and maybe one of those stumbling blocks they've got in the Telegraph piece, is that they're mentioning the Nolan Principles of Public Life. Lord Nolan had a Committee of Standards of Public Life, which is the kind of thing that MPs, politicians, lords, ministers of the Crown are held to account to. And in 2001, after Sophie Wessex was caught out with a fake shake sting, Lord Luce also established some rules for the royal household as to what kind of business arrangements they had and how you had to check any kind of endorsement with the Lord Chamberlain and so on and so forth. So Harry and Meghan have got a series of rules which people are going to expect them to follow. And it seems from their website and the things they have said and done that they don't wish to follow those rules. They wish to do something without any rules. But yet, as Benedict says, remain royal, because it's that royalty, it's their titles that make them celebrities, that gives them the power and the clout to do the good work they want to do, and it gets them in to see the philanthropists whose money they need to do the job.
And a very quick thought, you say that they are celebrities because of Harry's royal status originally, and obviously now Meghan's as well. But once, if they do lose that and step back completely, certainly as senior royals, will the interest start to wane, do you think, over time?
Well, the most interesting thing, well, he'll always be Diana's son, but the most interesting thing I've read in the past few weeks of lots of column mentions about this is that celebrity has to be anchored in something. When George Clooney can go off and do his philanthropy thing, or help out in South Sudan, or talk about human rights, or his wife can go and fight a human rights case, there's always the next big movie and film premiere in which his celebrity is renewed and is anchored in something else. And the same happens to Leonardo DiCaprio or Richard Branson. There's always something else. There's space exploration. There's Elon Musk has a new car coming out. So when you have this celebrity, it renews now and again. When you have left the royal family, how are Harry and Meghan going to renew their status? They have to renew their purpose and their value. Otherwise, their endorsements and the things they can earn money from is going to have a nosedive into being
personally, my view is that the very nature of wanting to leave the royal family in the situation, and the accusations of racism and it not being progressive enough, the acrimonious nature of leaving the royal family in the state is sort of a big enough event to keep them, as it were, front page news for a very long time. And then it is, as you say, it's what causes they choose to champion, what endorsements they choose to give. And actually, I tend to think that both of them are very intelligent individuals, very savvy individuals. I think that they will pick who it is they associate themselves with in terms of promoting themselves, what causes. I think they'll do that very carefully. I don't think they'll go away. I think they'll become, if possible, even more famous than they currently are. I think actually they've got this PR thing nailed down to a T.
Okay. Let's move on and try and squeeze in one story quickly before we go to the break, and that is inside the Daily Mail. And, of course, the formal beginning of the impeachment trial has begun with senators sworn in the last few days. And now Donald Trump has announced his team of lawyers, and there are some familiar names in there.
Yeah, Alan Dershowitz, who was one of the team of lawyers who got O.J. Simpson off his murder charge, and has also been a friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and has been linked to some of the accusations there, which he's denied very strenuously. And it just, if it kind of, this is something you shouldn't be joking about, but we were saying beforehand, O.J. Simpson's trial famously ended up with him putting his hands in some gloves to prove they were too big to possibly be his involvement in the murder. And here we are with Donald Trump, whose hands are famously quite wee. Perhaps he's going to actually say, no, my hands are too small. I couldn't possibly have picked up that phone call and famously made the call to Ukraine.
I just really enjoyed earlier on, I saw that Monica Lewinsky had just tweeted out, this before I realized that who it was, what it was she was talking about. She tweeted something along the lines of, "You've got to be kidding me." And then when I had a look and saw what the story was, that was pretty much my reaction as well. It's it's a real blast from the past, isn't it? And well, I mean, it's the Trump show. It's the Donald Trump show. There is nothing too ludicrous or too outlandish or too frankly repulsive. It just keeps on going. And I tell you what, folks, it's going to keep on going for another 5 years.
Well, there's you think he's going to win the next election?
Oh yes.
He'll get re-elected, but then Nixon got re-elected in the middle of Watergate, so.
Okay, well, we'll see. Well, the trial proper starts next week, and all expectations are, however it goes, he's likely to hang on to his job, isn't he, because of the number of Republican senators there are who are likely to back him. Anyway, it'll be fascinating to watch. We are going to take a break right there. Plenty more coming up after the break, including why was Greenpeace placed on an anti-terror watch list? We're going to delve into that next.